Welcome to Meet Me at the Bridge. I'm Glenda Chi. This is our first episode on Being Peranakan, an intergenerational conversation featuring Aunty Margaret DeSilva, former Vice President of the Peranakan Association Australia, Dr. David Neo, who researches and writes on Peranakan culture, and Corrina Chong, a proud Peranakan in her 20s. In this episode, we explore identity, belonging across generations, and what gives us hope for the future of our culture. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast was created and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I also honor and offer my gratitude to our Peranakan ancestors and elders. This is Meet Me at the Bridge. I just wanted to start this podcast episode on a premise, and that is it's all about creating a space to talk about identity, belonging, culture, community. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I feel that for a long time now, we've been trying to sustain culture, trying to preserve culture, right? But culture is lived among us. As we live out our cultural values and live out our identities as Peranakans, that's where the culture lives on, right? We can only learn so much in terms of how to manage, how to cook, how to design jewelry or wear kabayas. We can only do so much, and they are only really on the surface. So the reason for this podcast is to go deeper into our cultural values. And when we talk about identity and belonging, things like that, they are very layered and they are very deep, right? And each of us have got a different story. So as a, community builder, I am very interested to know other people's stories. I'm interested to know what other Peranakans go through. So just to introduce who's here today, we have got Aunty Margaret, who is our elder. And hi, Aunty Margaret. Thank you so much for coming.
Hello, Glenda.
Yes. And we've got our, can I say, David, my resident academic, Dr. David Neo with us, who is currently a lecturer at, is it UTM? UITM, yes. And so thank you so much, David, for your passion in the culture and for joining us today. And then we have Corrina, who we just recently met at the Baba Nyonya convention. And Corrina was part of my storytelling session. Thank you so much, Corrina, for joining us and for representing the younger generation.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
It's so wonderful. So thank you so much for coming to talk to us. And this is our inaugural episode, right? So it's a bit special. And I feel like I've had some connection with you, each of you, about our culture, about our identity as Peranakan. So it means a lot to me that you want to carry this conversation in a public forum. So thank you so much. What I want to do is just to cover a little bit here about what is Meet Me at the Bridge. What does it really mean? And I want to have these conversations with you, all right? And the conversations could be between generations or traditions, or it can also be conversations about who we are now and who we're becoming. So the first question I would like to ask Aunty Margaret is that in terms of identity, can you tell us a little bit about what your experience is growing up as a Peranakan? And now that you're an elder, how has that impacted your identity as a Peranakan?
Okay. Actually, Glenda, there is no such thing as a true blue Peranakan nowadays. My father is a Cantonese man, and my mother is Peranakan, as well as K, coming from Indonesia.
Mm.
So growing up, I think etiquette was one of the things, when we visit, my mother would make sure, don't forget, you small fellas must call that person, got title lah, whether Cantonese or Peranakan. Then we will practice, and that we'll practice in the car, and when the time comes, we'll say something upside down. So that was ingrained in me as a little child.
Yes.
And so my experience is that as I'm growing up, and when I became a mother myself, then I did the same thing to my kids. I said, oh, don't
Yes.
do it, So even in Australia, where people will just say, oh, hello, Margaret. I say, no, you cannot say hello, Margaret. You must say hello, Auntie so-and-so. Manners. But I must say that when we were little, we take it for granted. We just did what our mothers told us to do, what our papa told us to do. And when you say about experience, I remember as a child,
Yes.
I would go with my mother to Arab Street.
Yes.
I'm from Singapore, you see?
Right.
Yeah. And it's quite boring because my mother would look at sarong and batik and all that. But I would go with her. Until today, my mother is passed away already. We still go to that same shop in Arab Street.
Wow.
And then we'll look for that particular painting in Arab Street in that shop. And that's the shop that Mummy went to. A lot of shops have closed down anyway. So that's my experience. And slowly, it grows into you. So, excuse me, sorry, I'm the elder. We ramble on and we forgot what you're supposed to talk. So anyway, as an experience now that I am in Australia, I find that I am even more Peranakan, and I also learned some tips and some new things from you, Glenda. Yeah. So the elder, because I think we practice certain things, but we did not practice like Semai and Dato and all that because we are Christians. So I did not know that. So I'm learning that through Cedric. I learned a few things to adapt through you. So yeah, that's my experience.
It's really interesting, and I don't know whether this happens across the board, but when I first started the Next Gen Peranakan community, there's actually a few Peranakans who said, actually, I didn't know I was Peranakan growing up. Because they didn't know any better. We grew up in a Peranakan household and we thought that everyone else were like us.
Yeah.
So, and we didn't call ourselves Peranakan. We didn't have a label or anything. It is what it is. We just lived it out. It was so, as you said, ingrained in us, right? And it wasn't until I remember the first time we went to a convention in Malacca. That was the first convention that they had, the Baba Nyonya convention. And I was just thinking to myself, why are we having a convention about our culture, about how we live every day? Well, this is interesting. Ha ha ha. Little did I know that there were other people who lived like us, who had the same values, who spoke like us. I mean, I knew like my cousins and, my grandfather and grandmother from the other side of the family. We all spoke like that. Like I didn't even know until I think I was later on in my teenage years where I could understand that Peranakan is a culture. And it's so unique, right? Yeah. How about you, David and Corrina? Like, how about you guys? When was the first time you became conscious, I guess, about your identity as Peranakan?
For me, I think I was primary 2 at that time.
Wow.
And I was in ACS, right? I mean, what other more Peranakan school can you be? I don't know why. I guess my classmates were not that aware of the Peranakans, right? They were totally curious about why I spoke Malay, because my tuai would actually come to school and pick me up. It's like, so whenever I'm with her, I would just, speak Malay, right? And they used to kind of go like, why are you speaking Malay? It's like, and I think it was even brought up, in class, and my teacher was actually a Nyonya herself. So she was
Right.
so she was explaining, David is straight Chinese, and so she was explaining to the class, and I suppose that was one of my earliest memories of being Peranakan, and I guess my experiences have sort of like made me realize at a young age that we actually have a very unique culture. Because I mean, we consider ourselves Chinese, but I can't really speak Chinese to save my life, right? It's like, neither
Yes.
can my dad, right? I mean,
It's the
Nyonya
same.
are actually sort of like, more fluent with the other dialects, but with the babas, kita semua Cina buta kan. So those were my earliest memories. And then I remember going to school and realizing that or at least from Malay class, that I was actually mispronouncing all our Malay words, right? So as
Yes.
I came home and I was asking Mama. I said, Mama, mana pisau?
Yes.
Aduh, anak Melayu It's
Yes.
like, so it was all these
Yes.
peculiarities that we had, that as I guess as I was growing older, I realized that yes, we have our own ways of doing things. And Mama, I guess, was, as far as I could remember in my life, I don't remember anybody else in the baju panjang, right? So
Right.
Mama was in her baju panjang until she died. It was like, so I left Singapore in 1990. I'm not even sure when Mama died. I think Mama died a few years after that. So up to the
Right.
1990s, I had not seen another bibi in baju panjang other than my Mama. It's like,
Wow.
yeah.
That's
So, so
pretty
I guess
special.
these were the things that sort of like made me realize, how unique, our culture was. And Mama was just hilarious. Like, it's like, she had all her, her baby antics. It's like, and her sense of humor. I mean, it was like, we were also going to Wesley Methodist Church in Singapore, which was also very Peranakan. It was like, I think your
Yes.
grand uncle was saying, Tony Chi was
Yes.
actually pastoring
That's
that church.
right.
Yeah, so it's like,
Yes.
Mom used to say, oh, Tony Chi, handsome sekali. It's like, and then, I had like Isaac Lim, growing up with Isaac Lim and Melvin Wang, who was, pastoring, who were also Peranakans. And Melvin used to come up to my mama and said, oh, Bibi, it's like, boleh tak teriak mama? And she said, boleh, boleh. And she was so thrilled with that when we got into the car going for lunch. She was going like, si Melvin tu teriak mama sedap sekali. So yeah, so it was all these Mama's sense of humor. It was like, we had great fun with her. It's like how the Bibits used to think, and they were just so colorful. Yeah, it's like,
Yes.
I think very, very fond memories of something that I think the younger generations are not seeing so much anymore.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess our stories are quite different, our experiences are quite different. But I'm just so impressed, David, that when you grew up at such a young age, you was conscious about how unique the culture is. Whereas I took it for granted. I wasn't really that interested until like only a few years ago, really, until I got that that faithful phone call from Aunty Margaret.
To do what?
Actually, the truth is, it was just 2 weeks before that phone call. And it was just a little bit of, the universe trying to tell me something. 2 weeks before, and I've said this before, I've shared this story, how I forgot my grandmother's udang masak lemak nanas. I forgot the taste of it, which was, at that time, I was just going, it's a really common dish. How can I forget the taste of this? It would have been because I haven't cooked it for a long time. And number two, I haven't had my mom's for a long time. But then it started to dawn on me that if I do not hold on to this, if I do not literally cook this, I will forget the taste of it. And if I forget the taste of it, I will never know what the authentic taste of udang masak lemak nanas. And that freaked me out. And then a second level of freaking out was that if I could forget this, I could also forget my cultural values. I could also forget my mama's values, the values that I grew up with. And then suddenly I'm like, I'm not living it out because I don't actually know how to do this in an Australian household. I'm married to an Australian who doesn't know anything about Peranakan, right? And my mom and dad are getting old, and I only see them, every so often during the week, and it's just not enough. And if I was going to pass this legacy down to my son, I've got no idea how. And then 2 weeks later, you rang, Aunty Margaret, and asked me that question of why are the next generation not interested in the culture? And my thing was, hang on, maybe we are interested, but we just don't have the context to live it out. Because, our lives are so different from when it was a long time ago. And so this is why we need to talk about it, because we are interested, but we need to kind of figure out and I guess bridge the gap of knowledge, bridge the gap of generations, so that the legacy can be passed down, so that stories can be shared, so that questions can be asked. I think we need to ask more questions, don't you think? Yeah, just to figure out how we can identify and live out as Peranakans. But you know what? I'm going to ask Corrina.
I guess how I know that I was Peranakan was very simple as every time when I was younger, I guess my face looked very Malay. So everyone would assume that I was Malay. And then I have to explain, no, I'm Peranakan. Like, I know I look Malay, but I know I cannot, my Chinese is really bad, but I'm Peranakan. That's my only reason. I'm like, my parents don't speak Mandarin. No one, even my mom sent me to Chinese school just so I can help her order at Chinese restaurants. That is the main reason. And I struggled for 6 years for that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I was actually very aware that I was Peranakan, and especially because my mom would bring me to this Peranakan shop nearby San Francisco area in Malacca. Every time when we go back to Malacca, because we're from KL, she would make me go there. And I was younger, I was like, why will you spend so much time in the shop for what? And now I have an addiction. I have to go there too. It's a problem for me now. Yeah.
See Margaret's story.
Yeah, it's like I have to
And what-
splurge.
Oh, you have to splurge, okay. And
Yeah,
what do you buy there, Corrina?
I normally buy like this kabaya. It's actually from it wasn't where I usually buy it. It's like a few rows down. It was from this antique shop that had this Peranakan. She's like, oh, this is really nice, blah blah. And I'll be there for hours, and my dad would just sit outside in pain. So he like all of this. I have to make sure the sulam is like flowers, not animals. If I have fish, I don't want fish anymore. So I'm very specific about my kabaya that I have. So everyone knows that if I want to go kabaya shopping, just leave me alone. So that's how I'm very proud to be Peranakan in a very shopaholic way. But I guess
In a shopaholic.
So when did you when did you start appreciating and appreciating kabayas, I guess?
I guess when I was in high school, whereby everyone's wearing typical cheongsam, I'm like, no, I want to be different. I need to showcase my kabaya and then a sarong and everything. And I enjoy the fact that me and my mom, we would get to share our kabayas. Like how, because back then kabayas was so different how they make it. It was more imprinted, I guess. It's not like how it's factory made now. It's all very commercialized. And if you want a nice one, it's obviously a very big price tag. So
Yes.
so I guess I enjoy telling people, saying, "Oh, I'm Peranakan, like this is that, and my culture and what we eat, and how every Chinese New Year I have to have my bakula, I have to have my lemak nanas, my sebab, my pongteh. Like if I don't have that, that is not Chinese New Year. They have to make sure they
Wow.
have the criteria. Like
Yes.
yeah, for example, like this year Chinese New Year, I went back alone first before everyone else, so I can go to my kopo's house, so I can eat all the Peranakan food there is. I made sure I was on there to get my share.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yes. So I wonder, this is a question that I have been wondering quite a bit. Is there a point where every one of us, right, where we just kind of go, I want to own this. This is who I am. This is my culture. I'm proud of it. Is there a point? Because there was for me, and it was after I spoke to you, Aunty Margaret. It was actually then. It was very strong. And this is like, and this is so weird for me because I've been here for so long, and I've got all these friends, right? Because I'm a community builder, so I've got lots of network and lots of contacts. But they don't know this side of me. They never knew, right? And I've been to churches, I've been to uni, I've been to, I've been at work. They don't know that I'm Peranakan, that I'm from this culture until I guess, I answered that call from you and then agreed to join PAA as a committee member. And then it was even more so when our kaki of Next Gen Peranakans came along, and I was able to really live out as a Peranakan.
Among your peers, huh?
Among my peers, yes. And even Tim was saying to me the other day that Tim is my partner, for those who are listening. He was saying to me that he's really proud that I've really owned this and really living it out. And he wants me to go deeper into it because that is really the essence of who I am. I am 100% Peranakan and 100% Aussie. So yeah.
It's a really
So I wonder. So the question is there a point where we actually start to kind of like, yeah, this is who I am, and own it?
Yes, I think there is. I think my point, like I said, I grew up with it. You don't say, oh, am I a Peranakan? Am I what? But I think my point was when I auditioned and I took part in Pilih Menantu, the play in I think 1980s. And from then on, because suddenly I was really thrown in with people like Uncle GT Lai, Aunty Sally, Aunty Sally, and so suddenly I found, oh, there's so many of us, and I learned from them. They were the elders, and I was the young one. I was in my 20s, so I learned a lot from them and from Peter Wee, also the late Peter Wee. So, and his mother, Auntie Josephine. So all these people, and Uncle Felix Chia, they were the ones that taught me a lot of things. And, through their examples, through how they speak, their stories, just like, so their stories, and then later on they invited me to the Gunung Sayang Association, and we had Dodang Sayang, we had Joget. So that was like, whoa, it's because we don't have that every day at home, our home parties, we don't have all this all the time at all. So it's through them that I got to know so much of of who I am. And I became very interested ever since after that Pilih Menantu. That was the entry point, and I've never looked back.
How about you, David?
So I guess, like I said, from primary 2, it's like, that experience, it was a cumulative thing for me. I think, it
Yes.
just started from there, and then, it just became more and more apparent, I guess. I'm just remembering when I was leaving Singapore for my overseas studies in 1990. Yeah, so I remember a close family friend was telling me, it's like, don't forget your roots. Yeah, it's like, kacang jangan lupa kulit. Um, and and yeah, I that stuck with me. It's like, and I think being away or being away from home all those years, so it's, I spent like over 2 decades really in the West before I came back to Asia, uh, really made me even more conscious of my identity. uh, yeah, and although it's like, did it matter to sort of like the Westerners about Peranakan cultures? They don't even know very much about Asian culture, much less Peranakan culture. But yeah, it's like, so when I was in Canada, it was like, I was trying to sort of like cook Peranakan stuff there. Trying to find the ingredients was kind of crazy at that time. It was like, belacan wasn't easy to get, and then you had to substitute
Yes.
with all kinds
Yeah.
of things. And it was just so much effort. After a while, I just kind of like, I kind of stopped because, I was thinking, these orang putih, it's like, if I cook a 10-minute steak, they would appreciate it just as much as my Peranakan food. Why am I killing myself? And I just, kind of like,
Yes.
didn't bother so much. But when I went to Australia, that was when I got connected more to my relatives. I think you remember my Uncle Terry, right? And Auntie Susan, my aunties and my uncles in Melbourne. And that was when I would cook for them, because they totally appreciated and knew what went to it, and also these foods that we can't easily get in Australia. So I guess for me, leaving Singapore made me more conscious of who I am, and of course the cooking legacy with I mean, mum passed away when I was 12. So it's like, so neither my tachi nor I actually learned to cook from mum. So, as I was growing up and as we sort of like had to take on all the responsibilities that mum, used to do for us, it's like, I started realizing that, she was a good cook, and neither my sister nor I actually learned from her. So I made it a point to learn from mama as much as I could. It's
Yeah.
like, so mama and my Kim were very, I think they were very happy that a boy was actually, interested in learning how to cook and our Peranakan ways and whatnot. So they didn't hold back at all. I used to live
Wow.
in fear that whenever mama came over to eat or whatever, she would yum. But honestly, it's like, she has never criticized my cooking, and I think she
Wow.
was trying to encourage that. I lived in fear that, mama would come and, when I made popiah, and then she will also go, it's like, asyik macam kasih lu anak hajar. All these, all these things that you can sort of, you kind of hear, and I mean, how do you describe our culture? We just live it, and when we get together, when we share our experiences, we realize
Yes.
how unique it is, and how and how much it is part of a very distinct culture, even
Yes.
in Malaysia or in the Straits. So
Yes.
so I guess
Yes.
it was starting from, I guess, as young as primary 2. It was a cumulative thing, and I think being away even enhanced that more for me.
That's amazing, and what I'm hearing there is, I will go deeper into it in a few minutes. But what I'm hearing is, you can have all the culture inside of you, but if you don't have the people to live it out with, it's not going anywhere. It's not being lived out. It doesn't come out. It doesn't it come alive, right? So if you know how to cook all this food, but no one to feed it to, it's only just you. And this is why it's so important for the next gen to have their own kaki, because and it has to be their own kaki, because that's what is going to help them live out what they identify as, in terms of being Peranakan. I'd like to hear from Corrina. Is there a point, or for you it's just still happening, or the experience with with your kabayas just truly made you, it's definitely stamped on your passport. Yep, I am proud Peranakan.
Okay, yeah, honestly, I guess when I only was about high school, and because I used to have this family home where my families would come every Chinese New Year, like my mom's siblings will all stay in one house, and all the girls would get ready together, like just a girly thing. But then, like few years in, I realized not everyone's wearing kabaya anymore, and I realized like, oh no, like we can't skip that. That is important to us. If we don't wear kabaya during Chinese New Year, when are we gonna wear it? Weddings? Not funerals, but obviously weddings. But how rare is it to have a wedding, where everybody wears kabaya? So I was like, you know what? I have to wear the kabaya. So I had to learn. And I thought I could, I'm sorry, mom. I thought I could learn how to pin my croissant from my mom. Wrong. I was wrong. I had to go on YouTube and search. And I realized, wait, there's actually a lot going on for the Peranakan community that I didn't know about. Because to me, like you said earlier, like, oh, it's our day-to-day thing, which is true. But if that practice stops at home, or like it doesn't happen as often as it is, I should learn. I should engage. Yeah, maybe I'm not there yet to learn how to cook, because I'm still very spoiled by everyone's cooking, and I don't think I want to try. Not yet. Maybe later. I know I have to note it down, but right now I'll just showcase my kabayas. Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it's
You just take one thing. You just take one thing and you live it out, and it's yours, and you own it, and you just live it out.
Yeah.
Like some of us, we are really into our money, and some of us are into the cooking thing, but the culture is way more than that.
Yeah.
Right. And we haven't even talked about the cultural values, the things that are not really in these artifacts. Things like respecting your elders, filial piety, things like gratitude. They are all really deeply embedded in the Peranakan way of living and viewing the world. And this is why we need to talk about it, because we have to go beyond the artifacts. And so, which brings me to the next point of our topic here, and that's about belonging. So if we want to live out our culture values, we want to live out this culture, then we need to go and find people to live out with. So we need that sense of belonging. So the question is, what does belonging mean to you? Aunty, what does it mean to you in not only in theory, but in life, and as a Peranakan?
Okay, belonging. Belonging is like when you are very comfortable with that community. Example, that we belong to many things. For example, if I talk about being a Christian, I belong to my parish community. But as a Peranakan, I feel that, and now that I am in Australia, I feel very at home with my Peranakan friends at the association.
Yes.
And that's why we can go there, unbelievable, every Sunday.
Yes.
Of course, like when I was much younger, like you, Glenda, I didn't go every Sunday. I had to take time off because I had children to look after. So yeah, when my children were big enough and all that to fend for themselves, I'm off to the association, practically the whole day. Corrina, you won't believe it. We meet every Sunday.
Like church.
Yeah, like church. Yes, religiously.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just wonderful. It's kind of like, for Peranakan migrants, it's a home away from home. We've been saying that about the Peranakan Association for Australia, right? We've been saying that's kind of like our tagline, that it's home away from home. And that was the thing that my dad, who is the founder of PAA, that was his vision, to actually create a community where we Peranakans can feel at home, so that we can live out our Peranakanness with one another and have that bonding time. So that's just wonderful, Aunty Margaret, and you've been part of the PAA for a very, very long time, ever since day dot.
Yes, it is true what you said, Glenda. The community, we just go there, but it's not just like going to a community center. Over time, our association is already about more than 15 years. David Neo was also one of the founder members.
Yes.
And we got to know each other much better, and we have very good friends. We make friends, we make very close friendship with each other, no? So, like, I've known you, Glenda, for a long time too. You were young, like my daughter, but you've all grown up now, and I've grown old. David, kita sudah tua, eh? So,
Yes,
like,
Waktu
so
lagi.
yeah. And before you know it, I became old already, became senior, elder. So I think in the association, for example, we get on very well with each other on the whole, and we that, of course, like you, Glenda, with your peers, we click with certain people, and and we support each other. So there's a lot of support from the association members. Especially when we are in trouble, we ask for help. They support us. And also in good times, in bad times, anytime.
Yes, and we see that. As people who are younger, as the next gen Peranakans, the younger Peranakans, we see that in our elders. And we see the friendships, and we see the bonds, and we see you guys helping all the aunties and uncles, helping one another and being there for one another when someone is sick. I know when my parents are unwell, the aunties and uncles from PAA will come and give them food. You come visit them and make sure that they're okay. Also, I can see them now that they are way older now and going slow. And people are literally helping them, holding their hands to the car and things like that, carrying their things, And so my parents feel very at home at PAA. They feel very cared for, and they're so grateful. They tell me all the time they're so grateful for their friends from PAA, and that is what we want, because we're getting older too, right? We want that kaki. So I'd like to hear from you, David, about the sense of belonging.
My thoughts, as we're sort of like sharing this, was that out of Canada and Australia, I've both spent 12 years in. Yeah, it's like I enjoyed my time in Canada a lot more. And yeah, so but then I felt very culturally cut off as well in Canada. Yeah. Whereas when I was in Australia, I was very connected to my aunties and my uncles. It's like so family there, and I wasn't quite plugged into the Peranakan community. I think it was Joe Chua that introduced me to Margaret and Alfred, your dad, for the Peter Wee King, that exhibition that was held. So it was then that I told your dad, I said, there is a Peranakan community here. Let's start a club. Let's start an association. And that was when he said to me, okay, if we do this, it's like, will you be the secretary? And I said, yeah, fine, like not an issue at all. And I'm really glad, we actually started that. And like I said, when I visited you guys a few months back, right, to join you guys and see, I haven't seen you guys, I think since I left Melbourne, which is like 13 years ago. Yeah, and to see that it's thriving and it's growing, and there are new people, new interests, new ways of sort of like connecting with the culture. It was actually very, very gratifying for me. Yeah, to sort of like
Yeah.
we started something that that has taken its own life, and it was this sense of belonging. So it's the community, I think, is very important. Yes, I just had visitors. Actually, Margaret, you would remember them. It's Pauline's girls. Remember Becky and Shan, Pauline Gan. Anyways, she used to come out, and that was the few years that Pauline brought her girls. They were going to high school in Australia. Yeah. So now they're both done. It's like, school. Shan is working for the foreign ministry in Singapore. Becky is a medical doctor, and so they came and visited me in KL. It's like, they stayed here for the weekend, and I was just, they whoever I sort of that they got to meet, because going to makan and all that, it's like, the more people, the more you can order, right? It's like, so they
Yeah.
started noticing, it's like, are all your friends Peranakan? And I'm going like, pretty much.
Yes.
So we can identify with them. The values are there. I mean, we kind of like sarcastically go on about China girls, but we kind of like don't quite identify, because culturally we are Peranakans. Yeah, it's like,
Yes.
so
Yes.
I think that community is very important, because you don't have to explain a lot of things. And I think I try not to take that for granted. And I think having lived in the West for a significant time of my life, I'm aware of that, and I try not to take that for granted.
Yeah. But I just like to say that no matter what culture you identify with, whether it's Peranakan or whether it's Australian or whether it's Chinese or Chetty or Portuguese, I think it's really important for us as humans to thrive, to really flourish. We have to own it. We have to live authentically. And the fact that if we can't live authentically means that we either have not find the right people to live with, or to have a community where we can flourish, or we haven't found it. We haven't actually had that point of I identify as, fill in the blank, right? There's actually a complexity there. It's not saying that, oh, we're not like them. Now, when we start to go me and others, that's where the separation comes. And that's where we get more exclusive. But what we want to do is be more inclusive, listen to each other's experiences, and actually go, oh, that's your experience. And I can't deny that because that's your story. And it is, I've learned something today about you, and that's how we build that bridge. But that's another story for another time. I think we can go deeper with that. But Corrina, how about you? With all your amazing, I guess, experiences with the kabaya and with your thoughts and perspective on this culture, do you have kaki? Do you have community that you feel that sense of belonging?
If you're talking about people my generation, not yet. Because I guess everyone's building their careers right now because it's fresh grad, right? So everyone's looking for jobs. They don't have time. But fortunately, I have more time than the rest. So my first belonging of my Peranakan community was last year when I did a show with David Neo was there it was in May.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
Great.
that was like my first sense of, okay, this is the Peranakan community and how it is. And then a few months later, I was invited to the Peranakan convention to do the storytelling with you, right? So I'm like, okay,
Yes.
great. But then I know at the back of my head, everyone's going to be older than me. So it's just, I am going to be youngest there. But I'm so glad I was wrong. I was so glad I was wrong. There's people my generation, but you're just hidden away. I don't know why, how and where and when they popped out. But I'm like, wow, great. I have people my age, which is good. It's just nice thing to see. And like, what amazed me so much is when we go into the convention, everyone's slow. But I mean, yes, they're older. I get it. Respectfully, I get it. I understand. But the way they jog it and like, wow. Like they have no hip problems, nothing. They have no health issues. I was like, wow, fantastic. And they're so dramatic in their own Peranakan way. I was like, wow, this is my community, not my age, but fantastic. Like, I'm like, wow, I need to be more active, because if I don't join, if I don't participate, you have to sustain it. You can't sustain it without being there, especially my generation, right? So as much as I feel like, oh wait, everyone's gonna be older there, you never know. You never know. So let's hope. It's a chance. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there is a next generation Peranakan, but just know that when we're talking about the next generation, the younger Peranakans, we're talking about 3 different age groups. So we and this is the thing. It's a wide age group. So we've got the 40s and 50s, and then we've got the 20s and 30s, and then we've got the younger ones who are like my son's age, right? So it's actually, we are all next generation Peranakans, and we're all trying to make sense of how do we live this Peranakan life? How do we live our lives as Peranakans? And so there is time and there is hope, definitely. And this is why I'm very passionate about meeting up with next gen Peranakans from all over the place. It is why I go to conventions. Convention is the best way to meet other people from other associations, the best way to meet other Peranakans from other places of the world. And now you've got another reason. As long as I'm there, there will be a next gen meetup. So for Penang, that's coming up this year, we're very excited. 10 of us are going. We've already booked our flights. Convention details are not even out yet, and we already booked our flights because we have to put in our leaves and all that kind of stuff. So, but we are very excited to come because now I actually started to get to know other next gen Peranakans from Singapore, from Malacca, from KL, from Penang, and so we want to connect. And I'm planning a little meetup for next gen Peranakans so that we can go to the convention together. Because why would you go to a convention or a conference without your kaki, right? It's always more fun with your kaki. That's why I start this podcast as well, so that we can start to get to know each other and connect with one another and actually know that when we go there, there are going to be people our age. So calling on the 20-somethings, yeah? If you're thinking of coming to the convention and then start thinking, it's all just the elders. No, it's not. We are going. At least Corrina and I are going.
Yeah.
I'm not in my 20s, but but I could be.
Well, you sound like one.
You sound like one.
Yeah. Hey, Gen Z.
Yay! Yeah. So, okay, let's get into something a little bit more serious now, and which is a little bit more about the culture side of things. What feels fragile to you? What do you think that is a bit fragile about the Peranakan culture today?
Can I go first?
Okay.
Yeah, you go first.
I think what is fragile now is, okay, maybe I sound very mean saying this, but I realize a lot of businesses now, they use the word nonya in front of their food. But it's not true Peranakan cooking in my terms. In my terms, it's not. So I'm like, I wish there was like more authentic nonyas on display that is like, okay, this is nonya. This is what represents us, not something that it's not what Peranakan is or means. I may sound very controversial right now, but it's just, if you're doing nonya for business sake, it's not that ideal. And I feel like our association, I think if we have more exposure to other people about what we do, what we are, our cultures, how we talk, I think we'll be more well known, be more recognizable. And I'm so glad that the Malaysian government now is trying to let us put Peranakan in our birth cert, which I think is fantastic, great, because we are so unique. We are such a small community that is a bit aging out, I guess, in the most respectful manner. So I really hope that like we have more exposure to the younger generation, and us true Peranakans, or like not authentic Peranakans, can show how we are and what we are, and there's more to just Nyonya food. There's more than that. Like our culture, like, you know, our traditions.
Yeah.
Corinne, are you in the committee with the association at all in JL?
Sorry?
I think you should be part of the committee of the KL Association.
Yeah.
It's like, do you have time? It's like, or seriously work out your time to do that?
I have to make
Because
shift first.
okay.
I will make shift,
um,
but I guess I realized now that if I don't do it, like especially last year when I first did the show, I said if no one in my generation is gonna do it, then how is it gonna sustain, right? So yeah, I guess I do need to take the initiative if time permits. Yeah.
or manage your time, that you fit that in. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
because the thing is that, okay, what I think is fragile is I am constantly trying to think how to engage the younger generation. Yeah, because it's like, I don't want to lose our culture. And the thing is, I mean, I keep thinking of my niece. Yeah, it's like, and I want to impart everything I know to her. But at the same time, I feel that I can't. Yeah, I also feel or I realize that I am gonna bring things to the grave with me. But as much as I can share with her, I will, which is why I feel that it's very important, and I'm constantly trying to think of how to engage the younger generation. And I think being in the committee, hearing your perspective and hearing your ideas will definitely help the association to try to do things that is going to be relevant, that is going to interest the younger generation. Yeah, because it's an older group that is sort of doing a lot of the stuff, and we might not be able to relate as well to the younger generation. So I think it's quite important. So do think about that. And I do agree with you with this whole commodification of the Peranakan culture, which I've always had an issue with. Yeah, my pet peeve is the blue rice. It's like, since when do we have nasi biru, and restaurants are all, going on about how that's Peranakan? I have my non-Peranakan friends, asking me why my nasi ulam is not biru. And I'm going like, "Usmangat." It's like, can you imagine my mama? It's like, nasi biru, nasi ulam. So it's unfortunately okay. My stand with the little Nonya, it's like, that I guess was like, when the culture really kind of like started getting commodified.
This was a question I asked Peter Wee before. So I said, "Ba, apa pasal diorang macam?" And he said, "Imitation is the greatest form of flattery." Yeah. So he said, "Ayah, tak apalah. Like you said, it gives you visibility." And I think last time after the Pilih Menantu play was staged, everybody came out from the woodwork, and everybody wanted to be Peranakan too. Then that was like a big influx. Everybody came out and wanted to be identified, because earlier on, when I'll tell you a secret lah. Earlier on, when I was dating my husband,
Yes.
he introduced me to a Baba man. And this Baba man came from Emerald Hill. But he did not want to be identified as a Peranakan man or Baba man. Dia buat tak tahu, because he seemed to be ashamed of his cultural roots. I don't understand why. So anyway, my Eurasian husband said, Margaret is a Peranakan. And he was very proud, just like your husband, Glenda. So, yeah, and this fellow, I forgot his name lah, and he quietly said, "Oh, I'm also a Peranakan. I am a Baba," and full stop. And then nothing more. Maybe he didn't know much about his identity. And he wanted to hide it also.
Yeah.
So nowadays, after this little nyonya was first made in Singapore, everybody in Chinatown all went to buy, they went to buy their starter pack. Even kebaya, the starter pack now. Yeah, because it's the very, I'm also wearing a bedek one because when you got real one, got ketuk lobang and all that, right? And that was so mahal. So anyway, uh, these people all went all over the place. Chinatown all beli starter pack, murah-murah. But you and I mean, we also wear starter packs when like macam go road show kita pakai macam lah. But when we snono pi dinner and all that, we won't wear the starter pack, right?
Yeah.
So
You know, I it's so funny, isn't it, that we could reduce all of the richness of the culture into a starter pack.
yeah,
But I love what you said, what Uncle Peter Wee said. And I love, actually, there's a lot of things that he said that was really, really quite, quite wise.
mm,
What do you say? An imitation is a form of
a greatest form of flattery.
greatest form of flattery, right?
Mm.
I think that just as people are using our culture, leveraging on our culture and taking the beauty, but only like just a surface beauty of it and running with it, I think we should leverage on the opportunity as well. I mean, why not, right? But let's do it in a way where we can fill the blank spaces with our own authenticity. And that is why I started this conversation with, what do you identify with? How did you own it? How did it become true to you? And the more true we live it out, the better it is. And people get very attracted to that. People get very attracted to authenticity, where you really truly live it out, and they will see the difference between the starter pack and one that is the pro pack. And not only the pro, but something that is designed for one's body. It is going to be much better than a starter pack. We all know that, and that was just a metaphor for saying that we cannot sell our own authenticity, because that is invaluable. That can only be passed down through legacy. All right, it has got no monetary value. So whether you're rich or poor, you can be a Peranakan. That is what I believe in. Because I see it in my family. My mom came from a very rich family, Peranakan family. And then my dad came from a not so rich family. But both very Peranakan in the way they live. But they do have very, very focused, Peranakan values that they lived out. And both grandparents have got their own thing that they do, that it's important to them. And growing up in both households was very interesting. And then when it came to me about owning my own Peranakan identity, I'm saying, like, let's take it all. let's get all of the values. And this is something that I love to talk to my dad about cultural values, because it's very, very important. And it's what makes us Peranakan, not the kebayas, not the Peranakan tiles, not the pontes, not the maneks, but the values that, how we live out in our, that shapes our perspective, that shapes our worldview, that makes us Peranakan. And you can never put that into a thing to sell.
Yeah. It is when people say something like, "Oh, budak itu perama, has manners," yeah? These are the things that you cannot measure, but you see through the upbringing of the person and the and their children. Another thing that just now you mentioned, Corrina mentioned about about using that label, Peranakan label, for anything. They are just using that as a brand name. It's like that's an in thing to use at the moment. They use that to sell things, and for a long time, even in Singapore, they can't even spell the word nyonya anymore, and then they will say nyonya kueh, and then those kueh, but they're not. They are so full of starch and don't even taste like nyonya kueh, but they say nyonya kueh, and everybody got nyonya kueh. But really, my mother will say, "Alamak, that one's really CG lah." Anyway, never mind. But another thing that we're talking about, something I'm afraid of disappearing, is our language. Even in our association, many people do not know the language. And then when you want to, language we learn through music and songs. An example, I look at your playlist on Spotify, Glenda. You and I have got similar tastes. And I said to myself, oh, that's exactly what I would play and what I like. And so I can identify with you, Glenda. But a lot of people, because they do not speak the language, they cannot identify with those songs. And that's another layer. Maybe I'm not so good. I can't do pantun. I have to learn how to sing Dondang Sayang. I'm sure I can do it, but I think I'm not fast enough to jawab and all that,
Yeah. We can't do the
I can't do that,
spontaneous.
but I can.
No.
So things like Keroncong and all that, that's another layer of our music. So, and I find that in Australia, many people, maybe the elders can remember, but the people of my age group, they don't remember either. So I'm just one of the few, and you, Glenda, are also one of the few. And I believe we picked up the love of Keroncong. You picked this up through your grandmother, and when you cook, you have to listen to that. When I cook, I also have to listen to Keroncong. Then I cook my Nyonya style. And if I want to cook Ang Mo thing, I play some other things, So that it helps you. It's so weird, but it helps you with your mindset.
Yes. For me, it's about connecting with my grandmother again. You see, it's and music is very it's very important to me. I don't only listen to Keroncong, I listen to other things that I love, and but it sets the tone, it sets the mood, but also it reminds me of the person or the an experience that I've had, and so Keroncong, I must say, Auntie, a lot of the words I don't know what they mean anymore because I've forgotten some of the really Malay words. And while I can speak Peranakan pretty well and can understand, but I can't speak Peranakan for very long. So thank God this podcast is not in Peranakan for the whole hour because so I have to slip into English because that's how I think in English. But when it comes to music, it's really about connecting me to my roots. I actually think about my grandmother and think about how she grew up, and then I start reading about some of my ancestors and what they were into, and they were listening to the same music. They were listening to Keroncong as well, and they did get to the same songs. That's just so amazing that I get to do that as well, to have that understanding. And this is a thing. Like, going back to your roots doesn't mean that you do a genealogical session. You might, but you don't have to. You just have to go back to what your mother did and see where you've come from. We see where it originated. So for anyone who wants to go back to their roots, and whatever that means, it really means knowing where your values came from and where your values came from in your parents, right? And to talk to them about it. And then to teach it to someone else, because that's building the bridge. That's building the bridge. Yeah. I just wanted to also touch on what do you think that is really strong in our culture? What is even unshakable? Something that in our Peranakan culture, do you think that is really strong?
What is really strong? I think first of all, if recently, recently we had Chinese New Year, right? So Chinese New Year, one of the things that, and I also look at Facebook, I look at all my other Peranakan friends, what they're doing. And when we soja, well, now, my parents are gone. My children saw me soja my parents, and they from small also soja their grandparents. Now the grandparents have gone, and we live in Australia. My children still make it a point, and they're happy to kui in front of me and soja the mak and the bapa. Yeah,
Very good.
that is something that my children, they're in their 30s, so they do that, and so that is very, very it's ingrained in them. So that's an important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So traditions and rituals are going strong because they're still being practiced. I mean, the ones that are still being practiced, I guess. Not every tradition, like, I reckon things like Semayang Tingkong and all that, I think they're a bit hard to keep going.
That's
Yet
right.
super fascinating to learn about. Anyone else?
I think partly I will agree with soja as well. My mom will make sure I soja every Chinese New Year, which is something that I never thought it was a not normal thing. But now when Aunty Margaret talked about how it should be done, I think I'll bring that to my next generation, to my kids as well. I think that's a very important thing for as respect and for good wishes and well wishes as well. And
Yeah.
I guess what I don't know how if this is relevant, but it's also our food as well, because that's where we
Yes.
bring our community together. We sit down for a meal, and they judge what is lacking, what is good. Like I feel like I guess food is very important as well.
Those criticisms are still going strong.
Yeah, but you're the one cooking it, yeah.
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 Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Another thing, before I forget, we do this every day, and we, when we say grace and all that, after that we will teriak, right? We say, oh, from the elders to the young, like popo makan, kongkong makan, yeah. So I practiced that even after I got married, had my children, and even with my Eurasian in-laws. Eurasian, you don't say anything, but I will say to my mother-in-law, oh, mom makan. And Eurasian, I don't say mom eat. I will say mom
Yes.
makan. So funny, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I say that till today. And my children are watching, and sometimes they find it a bit like in Singapore they would say, but when they're with the Australian peers, they might be a bit awkward. They don't want to say, but I think it's in them. And you know that, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
Corrina, in your generation, that's sometimes you're the younger one. Sometimes you say, "Alah, so old fashioned," and then sometimes my children will make shortcut. Everybody makan. Then I just but you don't check that too much. I don't say so much, but they know. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a cycle in our conversation, because I started off by saying that I forgot the taste of my grandmother's udang masak lemak nanas. And forgetting the taste is like forgetting where you've come from. You forgot your map. You forgot your direction. But if you know the taste, then you can look at any recipe and you cook it, you go, that's not it. Right? You can go looking for it. You can go looking for those ingredients, and you know when it's cukup pedas, cukup, when it's fragrant, when you've done it well, cukup belacan, all that kind of stuff, right? I actually just cooked the masak lemak with fish for Chinese New Year just recently. And as I was cooking it, I was like going, oh my goodness, I'm really remembering my mama. And then I had my mom and dad over, and I let them have it. And I said, how is it? does it taste like Mama's masak lemak? And my dad was like, yeah, I think so, I think so. It's very, very close. She used udang, but I used ikan. That was the only difference. But he said it's very good. So when he said that, I was like, yes, because it was a memory. It wasn't a criticism that I was looking for. It wasn't a feedback. It's like, did I encapsulate that legacy? And yes, sometimes we need practice. We do need that feedback to say, tak cukup garam lah, tak cukup santan lah, whatever, right? We need practice so that it will encapsulate that legacy that was passed down to us through those recipes. And I can say the same thing about other things that we do. But yeah, this is amazing. And so what is the, this is my second last question that I've got. What's the hope? What's the hope that we have for our culture?
I guess if I've being very blunt, I hope people around my age, like I'm trying to bring my one Peranakan friend, authentic Peranakan friend, but she's like, oh, I'm busy, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I need to have kaki, because I guess I'm really shy around adults. Or maybe I have the biggest respect for them, and maybe I'm too Gen Z, and hopefully I'm not. So I'm just maybe anxious and scared that they wouldn't take my conciliation too seriously because I'm just younger. But that's also my problem, which is another topic. But I just hope that maybe my generation, we would also be able to, not to say take shortcuts, but from our way of understanding things should also align with the older generation as well. Because maybe certain things like the way my parents would cook, my mom would cook Peranakan food, which is very traditional, use tumbuk and everything. But I would, prefer to use a blender, so it's faster. But of course, the taste is different. But as much as I think I'm going off topic now. But what I think is really important is that we can meet in the middle to pass it on
At the bridge?
generation. Yeah, meet at the bridge. Basically,
Meet at the bridge.
yeah, like, we don't have to follow it 100%, maybe because you think like it's too much work, but hopefully we can and adapt most to all of what we have now, because if we have to do it, that's what I think it's important.
Yes. Thank you so much, Corrine. That is just such a wonderful answer. Thank you for saying that. And I just want you to know that if you ever want to talk about things, if you ever want to ask questions about your Peranakan identity, we're here. You can text me. And also Aunty Margaret, now that you've met Aunty Margaret is super helpful for all us younger ones. And sometimes she might not know all the answers, but she will know how to point the answers. Point us to the answers. Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
to. What is hopeful to me actually is listening to you, Corrina, as today. It's like, and I'm just going like, there's someone your generation who's interested. Yeah. And so I hope you will cultivate your interests with time, and that you will do more. You'll bring more people in. And the other thing too is that culture has to make sense to us. We have to adapt. Culture doesn't remain the same as well. Culture stays static. So culture will evolve itself. You guys will have to adapt it to your environment, to your realities. And I think that's fine. You've already experienced what you've grown up with and what your family does. And you have to internalize that and make that your own. So I don't think you should worry too much. As long as it's meaningful to you, it's like, that's what that's the important thing.
And I guess there is a framework. Like, for example, the tumbuk version of rempah is the framework, right? That is how they used to do it, and that's how they brought out the flavors. But there are a myriad of other ways of bringing out flavors, and that does include a mighty good blender.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Why not find out how to actually work that modern pestle, or get a Thermomix? I don't know. Because this is what our context is. We're busy. We go to uni. We go to work. So we need to try to find a way to get those flavors out. And so maybe one of the journeys that we can embark on is finding new ways of getting the same result. So I'm learning money at the moment, and my aim for my money is not to create shoes, because I've already got shoes. I don't need any more shoes, and I don't have daughters to give it to. So why do I want to learn money? Well, first of all, it's because it ties me back to my grandmother. She used to sew money all the time, and I saw her doing it, but I never learned from it because I was just a little bit too young. So now I'm learning it, but I want to make my own art with it. It's using my Peranakan, I guess, something that my grandmother did, but then creating my own art with this money. And I'm going to make, I've got dreams of making accessories. I don't know whether I'll get there because it takes me so long. But it's just practice, right? So I'm thinking, what makes it faster for me to do this thing, right? How can I adapt this artistic practice into my schedule? So I have money sessions with my Peranakan friends. And so while mannequin, we are learning all these things about culture. So we need to learn how to make it easier, not necessarily, compromising on quality, but how do we have the same result in a different way of doing it? Aunty Margaret, what do you reckon? What hope do you think?
The hope that I have for our culture is the continuity and the evolvement to something current. For example, the next gen members like yourselves and your peers. And then there's also the young group that I saw recently in the Facebook, Anak Sayang, the younger generation of the Gunung Sayang Association members. And I'm sure there are more because you met more of them in the KL convention. So this is what I feel that we need to be able to do. Yeah?
Yes. Great. Yes, I saw that Anak Sayang as well. Is it called Adik Sayang, I think?
I think Adik lah. I'm not sure lah,
Yeah, Adik I think it's Adik Sayang.
Adik or Anak,
Yeah.
I don't know lah. But
It's
they are
fantastic.
sure.
I think it's a fantastic initiative. So a little bit like us, but but the younger ones, right?
Yes, yeah, that's right. And recently I saw also on the social media the Armenian street party, and so there were the young Chetty girls as well. So that's really wonderful, in the Singapore context. So yeah, so I suppose in Melbourne, it is so wonderful that you have initiated the next gen group and you have your peers. So that's wonderful. And we can see that it's evolving, and your generation is very, you are different, and it's very nice, very refreshing.
Yes, we love it. Thank you, Auntie. Thank you for your encouragement as well, about all these things.
I just want to add to what Margaret said. I mean, I think we don't realize how important or how effective living out the culture is. But coming back to Becky, Margaret, it's like, so Becky is getting married in July. She's actually asked me, it's like, how can I get into, the Peranakan wedding apparel? We want to get photographs done. Like, so like, the fact of us just living out the culture. Yeah, those years when the girls were in Melbourne, I think Becky, for one of her project, she looked into the Peranakan culture. She read all the Peranakan books that I had and whatnot. So it comes around, and I guess, in time, I think usually it's when we start going to our 30s, we start realizing or start appreciating our roots and looking for who we are and how, what makes us who we are and how different or distinct that is. So so I guess oftentimes we want to see immediate effect, but I'm thinking that these things, they take time to internalize, and they will bear its own fruit in its own time. So as far as we are concerned, we just have to live the culture and hope that it will have its own continuity.
Yeah. Thank you, David. That is so important to remember. And I think the other thing that we need to remember is to create these spaces for people to talk about it. And not to judge them, but to actually open the space and be curious about what the experience is as Peranakans. So one of the big things that elders could do, if you ever want to know how to engage with the next gen, invite them over for dinner. It doesn't have to be big. It could just be a couple of them. Reach out. It doesn't even have to be a dinner, because with next gens, we love to connect. We want to connect. We are too busy to connect. So when we are invited to connect, we will want to try and make that time. And so we need to, I guess, open up that space just to listen to what they are going through. And one of the things that we've got to stop doing on both sides of the generations, we've got to stop assuming what we are thinking, doing, portraying, whatever it is, in terms of whether we're interested in Peranakan culture or whether we gone way off or what it is. We cannot assume someone just because they are busy in a busy season of their lives. We can't assume that they're not interested, or we cannot assume that they don't care about their roots or they don't respect their elders or whatever. We just don't know what the story is.
Correct.
So I think the gracious thing to do, though, is to actually talk to them. And when we show care and support to people, they will be more likely to open up. So, which brings me to the point where I just want to thank you guys for coming to have this conversation. It is towards the end. There's just one little question I want to ask. What's the highlight that you learned today? What's one thing that you learned today? Aunty Margaret.
One thing that I learned from this conversation that we had is that the Peranakan community, the Peranakan culture is not a dying breed. People always said that before, "Alah, this is dulu kala punya story." We need to be interested, and we seniors need to keep learning from the younger generation as well, because you see the world in another perspective. Nobody wants to hear this story. Last time in 19 Nok Balong, we did it like this. How are we going to do it now? It is now, It's nice to hear 19 Nok Balong stories because I used to hear that from my dad, and I said, "Alamak, it doesn't pertain to me." But I understand it now because I am a senior as well. So old and young must remain connected, because the elders are a living treasure, and the young ones make it better. And on a more personal thing, I learned a lot when I came to Melbourne. I continued to learn more via your parents and people like Aunty Yen, to name a few. And from the younger generation, I learned from you, because certain things I did not practice. And you taught me, example, because we have become Christians and all that. So during Chinese New Year, on the eve, you open your doors, you let the light in, you welcome the new year, and you ask for God's blessings. And I thought that was such a wonderful thought and idea. So I have learned from you, and I practice it now. And Of course, at midnight, all my children are sleeping, but never mind. I open the doors like you suggested, and, I welcome God into my house. Of course, we Christians know God is here everywhere, but it's a symbolism. Yeah. So
That's
I
right.
must say thank you to you, Glenda.
Oh, thank you, Auntie. That is such a precious ritual in our family. And Toby looks forward to it because he can stay up till midnight. And so now I do it at midnight, and I also do it first thing in the morning of Chinese New Year. And it just sets the intention, not only
Yes.
for the day, but also for the year. I think that we need to stop and really think about, be grateful for the things that we have, but also to welcome, set an intention for the year of what we want to do and what we want to achieve and all of that, and give and then surrender it back to God, right? Yes. So thank you so much, Auntie. I
Most
really
welcome.
am quite grateful for our friendship and our connection, and also your encouragement to us as next geners. So thank you, Auntie. One thing that you learned, David.
Yes, the connection. So,
Yeah.
like what Margaret is saying, and to see continuity, I think that's all we really want, because we live, well, we have such a beautiful culture. We don't want the culture to disappear.
Yeah, absolutely. Corinne?
So I agree with what everyone says, but to add on, I realized that I can't talk to ChatGPT about this because they would not understand how we grew up. So I'm so glad we have this community right now. Yeah.
Yes. Please keep in touch, Corinne. And if you're coming to Penang, we are going to have a meetup. The next gens, I guess I will announce it when we, in the next few episodes. I do want to meet up and engage with next geners and create my kaki. We're going to come. There's 10 of us coming. So yeah, it's been wonderful to have all of you in this episode, and I'm very grateful, and I'm so excited that I've started this thing. Thank you so much, all. Kamsia from the bottom of my heart, and we'll meet me at the bridge once again in time to come. You have just listened to the first episode of Meet Me at the Bridge. I hope you enjoyed our conversation on being Peranakan. Thank you to Aunty Margaret DeSilva, Dr. David Neo, and Corrina Chong for being part of this conversation and for sharing so generously. I'll leave you with a couple of questions to reflect on. What does being Peranakan mean to you? What do you want to learn from the elders? And how can you pass that on to the next generation? If this episode resonated with you, or you know someone navigating identity or seeking a sense of belonging, feel free to share it with them. I invite you to continue the conversation in your own circles. See you next time on Meet Me at the Bridge. This podcast was produced and edited by Glenda Chi. Music was written by Glenda Chi and arranged by Suno.